Welcome in, everybody, to this Super Bowl 59 preview. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and I'm coming at you live from New Orleans at Radio Row. And I have the pleasure to be joined by my good friends, Josh Fann and Lucas Murphy. We're going to give you our thoughts on this game. And it's great to get Lucas back on the podcast because we actually did a preview 2 years ago when the Chiefs and the Eagles met back in Super Bowl 57. We kind of had a big absence with Lucas on the channel, but he's back now. And the last time we did this preview, the Chiefs ended up winning the game. So, Lucas, you're kind of our good luck charm, and I'm glad that you're back.
If that's what it takes, honestly, for us to win another Super Bowl, then have me on when you need me.
Well, you might have to come on every single week.
Hey, I'd be down.
Josh, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, first of all, I want to say when you combine everything, Michael, like the disco lights, like those have been good luck, and then Lucas being here, your slime hat, like there's
There
a
it
lot of
is.
good omen around the Kansas City Chiefs right now. But man, I'm feeling pretty confident about this game. I don't feel as nervous about this Super Bowl like I did either of the last two, and it's almost because like winning just feels so routine to this team at this point, and you just have that feeling they're going to find a way to get it done.
Yeah. Lucas, your thoughts?
Yeah, I honestly, I try to reflect on each one. I truly do, and like I try to go back to as well, and like kind of assess how I felt going into each one. And like going into the first one, obviously it's pure nerves. It's the first Super Bowl I've ever experienced as a fan. So you're really kind of like, I just want to get this one out of the way. I think as we've progressed through these and like we've talked, like we're kind of used to this experience now. I'm not as nervous as I think as I should be, and maybe. I feel really good about this Super Bowl. I feel really good about this Chiefs team. I think the confidence is extremely high with them. I think it to them it's another game where before it's like the big lights, like you said, like you got people that are going to be interviewing them, asking them questions daily. Now it's just like part of the job. Like let's get this over with. Like even listening to like Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's like, I don't need all this media stuff. Like I'm ready for the football game. So I think that just kind of tells you where their mindset is. And I think I'm really stoked for this game.
Yeah, me too. And honestly, maybe I shouldn't think like this, but I had all the nerves and jitters going into that AFC Championship game against Buffalo. That was the game that I thought was going to give this Chiefs team an absolute fit, and they kind of did, but the Chiefs were able to prevail in that game. And so, while this is the biggest game of the year and the biggest game, arguably, in Chiefs history, I don't have as many nerves as I thought going into it. Maybe it's because it's Wednesday, or I guess the time that you're seeing this is Thursday, but I don't really have a lot of the nerves that I've had in previous Super Bowls. And I think that that's just because I have a lot of confidence in this current Chiefs team. And you've seen it in their demeanor. You've seen it in the way that they've gone out and performed this season. They're just different. They're just a different team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that one of the biggest things too, honestly, is like you got guys that are gonna calm the nerves of the ones that maybe have less experience. I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes literally leading the way.
mhm.
Travis Kelsey has literally been that guy. And I mean, Chris Jones on the defensive side, McDuffie, like the entire draft class that has never not experienced a playoff win. Like, I mean, the list can go on and on. You got Andy Reid as literally probably the best coach, eventually is going to be the best coach in NFL history. Like, you got all these things, one of the best defensive coordinators. Like, the list is literally you can unroll that thing and just let it go. And I just think that's the biggest thing is the fact that we got experience, we got all these things that are on our side in a positive aspect, it going into a history making Super Bowl.
Well, when you talk about advantages, I mean, the biggest advantage probably is the experience that the players and the coaches have, over the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. And Lucas, I'd like to get your thoughts on this because Michael and I were talking about this earlier in some other videos that we shot. But I think another thing too, where you can say the Kansas City Chiefs have an advantage is the fact that they have a long track record of success against this Eagles coaching staff, not just against Nick Sirianni in Super Bowl 57, but Vic Fangio, all the years that
Mm-hmm.
he was with the Broncos, last year with Miami, when he was the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins. Kellen Moore was the former offensive coordinator for the Chargers. The Chiefs have a long track record of success versus all of these coaches, and I think it's a big mismatch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a big deal. Like, honestly, it's the fact that like they probably know how to game plan too against those guys, and I think that's a huge thing. I think they know, hey, yeah, they've seen us, but we've seen them, and I think that's a significant piece. Um, Now, one of the things I think that they're going to have to definitely account for, and Michael, you've talked about it in one of your most recent videos, is Saquon Barkley, and I think one of the things that you really hit on and that I think is extremely important is the fact that he's similar to Patrick Mahomes, just plays running back. And what we mean by that is the fact that he's going to get his. It's just limiting how much of his is he going to truly get. Um, and I think that that's the thing where like you can kind of put them on maybe edge, or you can put them on a nervous situation where you kind of force those guys that you were talking about, Josh, like Fangio and those types of guys, where now they're having to make adjustments to us versus us having to make adjustments to them. And one other thing that I kind of wanted to say to it when it comes to that experience piece is, guys, we have experience in the Super Bowl multiple times of playing behind most of the game. And I think that's a significant thing too. I think as fans too, if the Eagles go up by 7, 10, 14, like I don't necessarily feel like I'm going to be on edge either, because of we've been in that experience. Like we've had that moment where we've been down and we come back almost, every time. So um I think those are just significant things to think about.
When I think that all season long, we heard the narrative that winning close games was a bad thing. And guess what? Once you get into the playoffs, playoff games are close. And the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL at winning those close games, making the 4 or 5 necessary plays in order to close out a game. And I'm not saying that the Eagles can't do that, but are you going to bet that against the Chiefs in this game, in this moment, with their experience, with their coaching, with their quarterback? I think that's why when you add it all together, we feel so confident as Chiefs fans, because not only do the Chiefs have great players at arguably the most important positions, including the coaching staff, they have the experience of winning these games in crazy pressure situations. You mentioned some of the younger guys, George Karloftis, Trent McDuffie. Now that I'm going down the line, Isaiah Pacheco, Leo Chenal, they've never lost a playoff game. That is absurd. Like that's the kind of experience that the Eagles do not have. And I talked about this earlier with Josh. The Eagles have experience, at least some of them do, of playing in the Super Bowl, but they don't have experience winning a Super Bowl. And that's a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's significant. I think one of the things, and I'll speak in a positive aspect for the Eagles here. I think that the one of the differences from the Eagles team that we faced in the previous Super Bowl to this one is I think you're getting a more fearless defensive side of the football. I think with them having such more younger, talented, players in certain positions, I think that is where we're going to see maybe a different aspect of the Eagles team. I think, it's almost going to be like, hey, whatever happens, happens. We're leaving it all on the field, and that's something I've talked about with the Chiefs. Is anytime you step in the field on the field in the playoffs, like that has to be the mentality. But I truly believe the Eagles are like bleeding that. Like I think the Eagles truly believe like we're going to leave everything on the field, and whatever happens, happens. Just because of that young kind of like fiery mentality that defense kind of can bring.
Yeah, and I think you look all over the field, and this Eagles team, relative to 2 years ago, still has. I mean, it's a lot of different faces, but it's still extremely talented up and
Hmm.
down the roster. But as Michael has said, the Chiefs have the best players at the most important positions,
Correct.
and it's kind of funny too because Michael and I were looking at this graphic earlier that was floating around social media, and someone made it, and it had like Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes neck and neck, and Andy Reid and Nick Sirianni neck and neck. And it's like that's just not the case. Like if you truly know football, you know that's not the case. But I do like that once again the Chiefs are being disrespected and leading up to the Super Bowl. And Lucas, you've probably seen some of the silly questions that reporters have asked, Mahomes and Kelsey about the refs and stuff like that. And I think those guys are tired of hearing about the refs, and they want to go out there and make a statement like we didn't need the refs to win this one.
That was
And
wild.
Josh,
That was
yeah,
wild. The guy
I
literally asked
hope,
him whose Christmas card is he sending to which ref. Like, what are we doing?
I really hope Though we see Patrick Mahomes, he's not going to say it, but Travis Kelsey, if they win the Super Bowl, they three-peat. He's up there on the podium with Roger Goodell and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and he sticks the Lombardi in the air as he hoists it and says, "We are the best team in NFL history. We didn't need the stinking refs." Something along those lines. It might have a little bit more colorful language, but I hope that Travis Kelsey speaks out about this because, Lucas, we were talking about this earlier, but it almost feels like the narrative around this Chiefs team is so boggled down by the officiating and all the people that are complaining about the officiating that it's taking away from the Chiefs' greatness. And maybe that's why we don't have the same nerves going into this game, because we haven't been talking about the X's and the O's. We've been talking about, are the officiating, is that going to hold up? Is it going to be, questionable in this game? That's where the narrative is, going into this game. It's less about football and more about, how people can make money on clicks.
Yeah, and I think too, with there being 2 weeks within from the end of the championship series to the Super Bowl. I think with the 2 weeks in there, I think they really like narratives have to be created, storylines have to
Yes.
be come together. And one thing that they were actually talking on 810 the other day was, it's kind of like that Andy Reid like going back and facing Philly. That's an old story. Like that's not really a storyline people are going to buy into anymore.
Yeah.
The Kelsey brothers situation, like Jason doesn't even play for the Eagles anymore, and yeah, he's still obviously rooting for them, and that's kind of like his team and everything, but that storyline doesn't really exist. And like Jalen Hurts and Mahomes don't really beef. Like there's just not really like those storylines that there were in existence from the previous one. So like it's almost like you have to reach in that bag and find something, and it almost just seems like that referee thing is it's a United States type of like headline, and like people are like, oh, we can gravitate to that. And I think what the ultimate I think thing Mahomes could do is if they win, find a way to take a picture with all the Lombardis and then have the refs line up behind them and send that as a
Yeah,
Christmas card. You know what I'm saying? Like
I was
send
gonna.
that, send that as a Christmas card to all them guys.
I was gonna say the same thing. I think the funniest outcome would be like they win the Super Bowl and Kelsey's like, "Where are the refs at? Get them up here. We couldn't have done this 3P without you guys." Like, just lean into it all the
I
way.
want to see I want to see at least one of the key three completely just melt down and hug like three refs. Like I
Yeah.
want to see that after the game, because listen, if we're going to have to hear about it all off season, you might as well just lean into it and make it funny for the Chiefs fans, because, Lucas, you mentioned it. It's easy to grab onto this narrative because NFL fans don't like the Chiefs. And you know why? Because they probably beat your favorite team. That's
Yeah,
why you're pissed off. That's why you hate the Chiefs, because they're better than you. They're greater than your team, and you're sick and tired of watching it. And so I think that, we're really doing a disservice. Well, actually, we're not. The national media is doing a disservice to this Chiefs team, that that is the narrative being pushed during arguably one of the most pivotal Super Bowls in the history of the NFL. The Chiefs are one win away from becoming the greatest team, the greatest dynasty in NFL history. And all anyone wants to talk about is the officiating. And it just goes to show you that, maybe this is a microcosm of the country and where we're going, but like that's just insanity.
yeah. I think what's crazy too is like you have fans, media that are like actually in within the NFC realm, and they're still rooting for the Eagles in whatever way. And it to me, like there's Cowboys fans out there that are even rooting for the Eagles. And it's like that's pure insanity to me, because that's literally like your rival and you're cheering for them to win and have success. And like I don't know, Josh, like I'm not taking a shot at you, but that's like me as a Kansas fan rooting for Missouri. Like that's just not gonna happen ever. So like
I'd rather die. I'd rather die.
right. So that's what I'm saying. Like I just think it's crazy, and again, you have to find narratives, you have to find storylines, you have to find a way to build this up to make it to be, viewed and watched, and that's what the Super Bowl is all about. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I think like the storylines that we need to be looking at are truly like how are we going to stop Saquon Barkley? How's our offense going to continue to have success? How's our defense going to limit them and force Jalen Hurts to throw the football? Like that's what we really should be focusing on.
And Lucas, those are the storylines that we're going to unpack in this video. And with that being said, Josh, take it away.
Well, I think I want to get Lucas's thoughts on kind of some of the the positive storylines, such as like guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Kareem Hunt potentially winning their first ring. Uh, Lucas, how bad do you want it for those guys? I mean, I feel like Kareem Hunt's the biggest one, but there's so many guys on this team that you just feel like deserve a ring, and uh, they may not get another chance at it.
I think that's to me, and I think that's truly what is fueling this team a lot too. I think they're seeing like the emotion that like Kareem has. I think we're seeing it with D Hop the other day. He wore, I think it was a jacket
Yeah.
that his dad, told him either to wear at his wedding or at a Super Bowl. And like, so you're seeing like some of the like real emotion of these guys who are finally, like you said, truly getting to experience this for the first time. Yeah, it's to me that's what makes it even more. And like I can't tell you how many times we talked about D Hop wearing red and gold. Like I've
Yeah.
wanted that for so long, and like I think now that he's finally here, and to go win a Super Bowl, because we don't know what the future holds with him. Like I would love for him to come back. I really truly would. I think his presence, his leadership, like he still has ability. Um,
Hmm.
I would want him to come back, but I think in the moment, let's go get one for him. Kareem Hunt, I think, is the biggest one for me because he was here and then obviously had his situation, had to go elsewhere, and we just started, going off with Super Bowl run. And I think now that he's back, he obviously got helped us get here. Like
Hmm.
literally came off the couch, talked about it. There's been interviews of him, talking about how he like reached out to Mahomes and a few of the guys and was like, "Hey, I'd love to come back." And they,
And he didn't think it was going to happen either. He was
right,
like,
right.
I mean, it's probably not going to work, but might as
Right,
well
and
send a
they
text.
gave him an opportunity. Andy's all about second chances, so let's go get one for him too. And I think that's what I think truly like. Yeah, the ref talk and all that stuff, but I think seeing those guys in the moment, I think is what fuels this team too. Is like let's go win one for these guys.
It's funny that you mentioned Kareem Hunt's comments. He's great. I love Kareem Hunt, and I understand probably why he's reacting the way that he is. He's been a rough interview this week. I think he's just sick and tired of the media stuff. Like he's ready to play football, like a lot of these guys are. They don't want to be, doing 3 hours of media every day. And so I do understand that perspective, but you got to feel for someone like him and Hopkins and Brown that have never been in this position. They're playing for something that they've never accomplished. And that's the storyline that Chiefs fans and NFL fans can get behind. DeAndre Hopkins is beloved by NFL fans. He should be a guy that everyone is rooting for to get his first ring. But since he's on the Chiefs, he's kind of viewed as the enemy. But yeah, like that's one of the positive storylines, Lucas, that there are guys on this team fighting for a Super Bowl that are real feel good stories.
Yeah, I think what's crazy too is, at the you're seeing these guys come over, whether it's a trade, sign in free agency, whatever it may be. But you're seeing like what is happening when they join. And I think that should speak volumes to any free agent that's out there. Like, yeah, you could go get your bag and go play on a team that finishes 500 or a little over 500, whatever it may be. But you're coming to a team that's going to the playoffs, the AFC Championship 100%, and is going to compete for Super Bowls every year. So I think that should just also kind of speak volumes with everybody out there that's going to be looking for a team this coming season. And I know we're talking about right now, but I think to me that just kind of exuberance, like it's an exuberance to those guys to be like, hey, look, Kareem came off the couch and here he is and he's playing for a Super Bowl. D Hop, had been dying to get to the playoffs and go to a Super Bowl, and we trade for him and here he is. And like, Hollywood Brown finally like is healthy enough, gets hurt unfortunately, but is healthy enough, signs with the Chiefs, and is here we are. You know what I mean? Like we
Mhm.
still have Rashi Rice. Like Rice hasn't, a video just came out of him and that dude looks like he's ready to go. Like we got guys that I think, it just speaks to like what the organization is and everything like that. So I'm excited for every one of them.
I think too, this just speaks to like the position that the Chiefs are in as a franchise now. Because after they won their first Super Bowl in 2019, I think a lot of us were like, "Oh, you're going to see free agents sign with this team for dirt cheap to go chase the ring." That didn't really happen. But once you do it multiple times, I feel like there's a lot more weight to that. Hollywood Brown was a guy that I feel like could have definitely gotten a multi-year deal elsewhere, but
Oh yeah.
decided to sign with the Chiefs on that 1 year. DeAndre Hopkins, that's definitely a guy that was like, get me to Kansas City. And then you see DJ Humphries, although hasn't been able to get healthy and get on the field, but like talked about his relationship with D Hop and like him talking about the Chiefs that made him want to sign here. And if you three-peat, it's only gonna make that an even stronger case to free agents that you can come here and you can win a ring, and it's not just a one-off thing like when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in 2019. Like this is an actual dynasty. People want to sign up. They'll take less to play here, and I think you're seeing that a lot more now.
Well, I think too,
When Andy
Hendershot. I don't, Darcy. That could have been you doing the interview. Somebody did the interview with Hendershot. I think I'm saying his name.
It
right.
wasn't me, but I need to get to him tomorrow.
But he basically, someone asked him the question of what's the difference between Dallas and Kansas City, and he goes, "Hey, I'm not taking a shot. I really am not. Like this isn't direct fire, but I'm just gonna be honest with you. Kansas City Chiefs are about playing football. They're about winning, and that's what you can sense that here. It's small town environment, like." With the Dallas Cowboys, it's like, okay, how many pictures can we take? How many autographs? I got to go do these events. Like, it's almost like football's 50-50 with that other stuff. He's like, we're Kansas City. It's all about business. And so I think that to me kind of opened my eyes too. And it's like, well, that just translates to what we're doing on the field. Like if those guys are just, hey, go do this or that, and it's your personal time and you're not being forced to be America's team, you're just doing your thing and like you're playing football, then I mean, look what's happening. So yeah, I think that was a really good interview. I thought it was you. I was going to give you all the credit in the world.
No, I'll take the credit, but it wasn't me. But to your point though, Andy Reid is someone that players already wanted to play for. And listen, we thought that after the first one that free agents would be knocking down the Chiefs' door to get here. Understandable that they didn't. Second Super Bowl, okay, starting to heat up a little bit. Third Super Bowl, okay, back to back. It's kind of getting crazy. You see DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, they get Juju Smith-Schuster back. If they three-peat, man, we're going to start seeing some free agents that are like, I don't care what I have to give up. I'm going to play with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid because, I mean, while it's not going to happen, and we're really getting off into the weeds, Myles Garrett looking at the Chiefs like, if they three-peat, 4 would be great. 4 would be fantastic. Could you imagine Myles Garrett and Chris Jones on the same defensive line?
Josh, I don't know about you, but I would trade Darcy for Myles Garrett if we had.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to get Myles Garrett on this show, I'll trade myself out. I'll bow out gracefully.
Myles Garrett, and see, we got Lucas here, so like this is my chance to bring it up. But like, wouldn't it be nice to get an actual good edge rusher, like an elite pass rusher to put next to Chris Jones?
Not me, by the way.
Out on the edge. We haven't had one since Justin Houston, D Ford. I mean, that Frank Clark guy.
Oh,
Myles
boy.
Garrett though, sign me up.
Man, I told my buddy the other day. I said if I ever truly see, because there's already kind of like your clickbaity like pictures of him wearing Chiefs stuff out there, but like if he truly like if that breaking news announcement happens where we trade for him, tears are rolling down my face.
Oh yeah.
That would be nuts. If Myles Garrett found his way to Kansas City, the comments are bad now, ladies and gentlemen. It would get a lot worse.
Could you imagine a Spags defense that would basically never have to blitz ever again? Because that's how good the front four is.
He honestly probably would suck. He wouldn't know what to do with himself.
The thing, like Garrett and Jones combined alone, like, and then if they were, keep George, like I think
George on the 5th-year option. I mean, he'll still be here another year.
George is progressing nicely. Like George has really kind of come to his own. Like, man, that would be so disgusting.
We got to stop fantasizing about this because it's probably
Tershawn Wharton back on another 1-year deal.
Yeah,
and that
it's
guy
gonna
had a
be.
good year. Could you imagine? Oh my God.
We're running it back with Derek Nottie and Tershawn Wharton. We're not getting Myles Garrett. But to kind of bring it back to this game, Lucas, you make a great point about how there's kind of feel-good stories on this Chiefs team. And I think if you look within, there's a lot of great narratives from the Chiefs side of things. Now, Philly, it's kind of like they are seen as the good guys versus the bad guys in the United States. Like everyone outside of Kansas City is rooting against this Chiefs team. And, we've kind of talked about how the Chiefs are villains, but also they're not true villains. Yeah, they're villains because they win a lot, but like the New England Patriots were the quote villains. They also have multiple documented cheating scandals. So there is a narrative going around that the Chiefs are kind of like, the bad guys, the villains, but I really just think that they're playing better football than everyone else. And they're just winning a lot of games.
For sure. And I think that I don't like comparing ourselves to the Patriots because that's at some point we're going to overcome them and we're going to have to, you know what I mean? So, But I think to compare us to them, I think the reason why I dislike them so much is now as a fan of a team that's doing the exact same thing, it completely makes sense. Like the consistent runs, the consistent success, like as much as you're like, man, I want them to fail, at the end of the day, they're going to be there. And I think too, some people are just like give up and they're like, hey, I'm going to root for them because, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and let's see what they can do. You know what I mean? Like three-peat, let's see it. So
Yeah,
yeah, man. I think, although I do, you see a lot of stuff where they talk about Philly kind of just being like the nastiest fan base,
they're
and
pretty
those types
bad.
of things. So I do think like there's some hidden Chiefs fans out there for sure, but I do agree with your statement. I think a lot of people are just hoping that we lose.
for sure. And I think if there's a team you want to go up against that could rival the Chiefs as one of the most hated teams, I mean the Eagles they're up there.
Yeah,
And I think you see a lot of like, and I know Lucas, you said there's a lot of Cowboys fans that are like rooting for the Eagles, but then on the opposite end, you're gonna have Cowboys fans hate watching this game. You're gonna have Giants fans hate watching this game, rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. I remember seeing a post the other day on social media, and it was from a fan of a team in the NFC West, just like thanking us for beating the 49ers every time in the Super Bowl.
yeah,
It's insane, man. It is so crazy. But no, I think that the overall consensus is that the Chiefs are the quote villains because they win. And so I think that, you know, this is a great matchup for the Chiefs because if they would have beat the Lions in the Super Bowl, man, we would never hear the end of that. We robbed Dan Campbell and that Lions franchise of, a Super Bowl title after they have been horrible throughout their franchise's history. But
yeah,
this is a good matchup. And kind of getting back to the game, while the narratives have been about the refs and how it's being rigged, this is going to be a really good game. These are two of the best teams in football, and if you just look at how these two teams stack up on paper, the Eagles have a fantastic defense, a fantastic offense. They were second in the league in rushing, and I believe, if I'm correct, they were 27th in passing. So they have a deficiency in throwing the football, and the Chiefs do a really good job defensively of stopping the run and, I think turning the ball over. They've got a really good turnover percentage. So on paper, these two teams are going to play a really good game on Sunday. And I think that that's kind of being overshadowed by all the discourse. But this is going to be a great game between two great teams.
for sure. I think to me, when you look at it, both teams have the exact same weakness. And then I think to some degree, they both have a significant strength in some facet. And that's what makes both teams successful. And I think that's why it's so hard to differentiate like which team's truly the better team. Because obviously they run the football extremely well. I would say we're gonna throw it extremely well.
Yeah.
Defensively, like they're going to fly around. They're going to, do what they got to do on the defensive side of the ball. Well, we can almost say that we're going to do the exact same. And so I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to kind of what we talked about with the Buffalo Bills game. And crazy enough, they fumbled the football, 5 times and collected it every time. But I think to me, it's coming down to who's going to turn the football over more and who is going to possess the football last.
Yeah, as much as I don't want the game to be that close, I have a feeling you're right, Lucas, and I think it's just going to be another typical Chiefs game where it's going to come down to the end, but the Kansas City Chiefs being as good as they are in close games and always making those 2 or 3 plays to win it, that's what you're going to see.
If this Chiefs team wasn't as experienced, wasn't as, battle tested as they are in winning close games, I would be terrified if this was a, 27-24 game down the stretch where the Eagles had the ball. But we've seen this Chiefs team 15, 16 consecutive times win close score games, like one score games. That is extremely uncommon. It's not luck. At a certain point, you're just that good. The Chiefs are just that good in these moments. And so I think that we're probably going to see a close game. I'm not going to predict a blowout from either team. I think it's going to come down to the wire. It could be like last team that touches the football. But again, if Patrick Mahomes is put in that position, are you going to bet against him? I know right now that the betting lines are in favor of the Eagles. I don't know a single person in this convention center down in New Orleans, a single fan on their couch, that if Patrick Mahomes touches the football with a minute 30 to go, down 3, there is not a single person in this country that's going to say, no, this game's over.
I have a question for both of you guys, and
Okay.
I've been stewing on this one. You have to pick an MVP on the Chiefs side other than Patrick Mahomes. Who are you going with? Josh, let's go with you first.
Chris Jones, baby. Defense. I think if it's not Mahomes, Chris Jones. Although I don't want to steal it in case it's Michael's, but if it was
You
going to be on
probably,
offense,
yeah.
I have a sneaky pick. I have a sneaky pick.
Oh, well, if it's sneaky, then we probably don't have
I
the
think
same
it's
pick.
sneaky, but it could be your answer. I don't know. I think Xavier Worthy has an outside shot
Oh,
to be the Super
okay.
Bowl MVP because if you see him with like a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown, 75 yards in this game, you could potentially see him get it.
Listen, if the Chiefs win this game and they three-peat, you're going to have to pry that MVP out of Patrick Mahomes' cold, dead hands. You are not getting that out of his hands. They're going to give it to Pat if they do end up winning. I will say, though, as we get closer towards the end of potentially Travis Kelce's career, he's still going to play. He talked about that earlier this week. But how many more Super Bowls is he going to play in? This could be a Travis Kelce legacy game. He's very close to breaking Jerry Rice's records, all-time postseason records. So if he goes out there and has 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibilities, they might give it to Travis Kelce. But I think that this is probably Mahomes' award to lose at this point. And if Philly ends up winning, it's got to be Saquon. It's got to be Saquon. But to kind of go to what Josh said, Chris Jones would be a deserving pick. But if a defensive player wins it, I think it has to be like a Nick Bolton situation from a couple years ago where he's got to scoop and score, maybe a pick 6. Something ridiculous is going to have to happen defensively for a defensive player to win the award. Maybe like 4 or 5 sacks from, or at least 3 sacks from a player. And you'd also need Mahomes or the other team's, quarterback to play poorly.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it's tough. I was kind of actually leaning towards Josh. I could see like a weird situation where Worthy just has like one of those freaky games and goes off and like has a moment where he can. But that's why I said other than Patrick Mahomes, because like you
Yeah.
said, it's his to lose. No
It's
question.
hard because if a wide receiver has a good game, that obviously probably means that Patrick Mahomes had a good game,
Yeah.
and therefore it would go to him.
I've been going through all the betting stuff, and like there's a lot of people out there that kind of slew some parlays together, and like that's another thing too is like a lot of the parlays are like Mahomes over 250. Like if I think we're gonna have to throw the football. I think that they're gonna have to really rely on Mahomes to kind of have that mobility to kind of, hey, something's not open to run down the field. And like, we're going to see one of those, like, again, like we talked about with the Bills game, like we're going to see literally the Grim Reaper Mahomes come out. And I think too, all the comments and everything. And like the dude's literally playing for greatness. Like he talked about his legacy. Somebody asked him like, hey, what do you want your legacy to be? And he's like, I just want everybody to know that I just leave it on the field every time. Like to me, that just speaks to who he is. And so yeah, I think you're gonna see one of the best football games from Mahomes.
Yep, I think that's a good bet to have Mahomes having a great. And here's the other thing: we haven't seen Patrick Mahomes have like, and not to say that he hasn't been great, but we haven't seen like, and Lucas kind of talked about that performance, like the Grim Reaper, and before the AFC Championship, he talked about that. We haven't quite seen that Mahomes in the Super Bowl. It's always been kind of a slow start for him.
Yeah.
I would like to see the Chiefs start fast in this one.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
was
Lucas, you
supposed to
make
be.
a
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, you make a good point with Patrick Mahomes playing for greatness. It's not just Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. It's Steve Spagnuolo. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. Like, there are so many guys on this team that who knows if a ring pushes them over the edge of getting into the Hall of Fame if you're a fringe player. Like, this is a big deal for these guys' legacy. And listen, Josh and I have talked about it behind the scenes. If they win this Super Bowl, they don't have to win one for the rest of Mahomes' career. He's three-peated. He's accomplished the Jordan feat. He can bow out after that. And you could still have a legit conversation that, that guy's the GOAT. 15 is the greatest player I have ever watched play this game. But you got to get 3. And he knows that, and this entire team knows it. And with greatness on the line, are you going to bet against the Chiefs? I'm not.
No.
Now what if he decided to retire after three-peating and then went to go pitch for the Royals for a year and then came back and won 3 more?
We need relievers. So I would hope he does. Excel that process through the minors as
I,
well.
I'll take him if he's just hitting nukes. We just need somebody to drop bombs.
Can he hit before or after Bobby? Like I just don't know where he's gonna fit in the lineup, but no, I think he is kind of following the Jordan trajectory, and it's just absurd that we as Chiefs fans are watching arguably the greatest quarterback we've ever seen play this game, arguably the greatest head coach we've ever seen play this game, the greatest defensive coordinator we've ever seen play this game, go for a three-peat. Who would have thought that, 4 or 5 years ago, we would be in this position in 2025 before Mahomes is 30?
That's
Crazy.
wild.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Truly insane.
And who would have thought that I'd be down here in New Orleans covering my second super, like, definitely not me. Definitely not me, but that's
I have
probably a good point.
I have a
No,
question.
go ahead, Lucas.
Question for you, really quick about that, because I think that should not be go unnoticed, especially for your channel. I think that speaks volumes to like where your channel's at and what you're doing successfully. Like, dude, you're killing it. So my question to you too is obviously you're surrounded by NFL football players, or you're surrounded by the Kansas City Chiefs, the Eagles, like all that. But everybody comes to the Super Bowl. Who is the coolest, like most popular, like person you've either spoke to, like ran into, talked to? Like give me who it is.
Oh, that's a good question. Because like last year in Vegas, it was like Max Crosby just walking around, or like Michael Irving was sitting in this chair. So it's just like you saw those people in Vegas that popped out. I will say I've gotten a lot more comfortable interviewing players this year. I kind of had a lot more nerves last year, but I kind of just been able to go up to players and say like, "Hey, can I talk to you, Drew, or can I get a couple minutes with you, like Pinnell?" Like they've been super nice to me, and it's been so fun to get that kind of content for the channel, and I got one more day of it. Hopefully, I can get more interviews for you guys tomorrow. But yeah, we've been putting in a lot of late hours, and I'm super appreciative to get Lucas and Josh, on the channel and to talk about this game, because the Chiefs are trying to do something that we're gonna look back, win or lose, for a long time. That the Chiefs were in this position, and I think we're probably going to be talking about a very good victory on Sunday.
For sure.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. We'll be praying for it.
Yes.
With that being said, guys, that is all we have for this video. Before we get out of here, we'll start with Lucas. Where can the people find you?
You head over to the Beat of KC on Twitter. You guys will probably get annoyed of me once it gets closer to the Super Bowl, because I like to ride my emotions onto to Twitter or X.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So yeah, if you follow me, head over there, and I'm sure we'll have a good interaction during the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. And Josh?
You can find me here on YouTube, Show Me Football. That's the channel name. Check out more of my work on showmefootball.com, arrowheadaddict.com. Last but not least, Twitter, Show Me Football, or Show Me FB, I should say, is the @.
And guys, all of that stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel for more daily Chiefs coverage. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.